I'm Mike Duggan again, and welcome back. This is video 8 of the healthcare series that I've been producing to help you find a way to get better healthcare. This is all directed at what you can achieve with respect to your own life, your own self. Okay, so you in a relationship to the healthcare system, and what are the personal qualities of people that impact your ability to get good healthcare? People including yourself and the people that work directly with you within the wellness community, the various providers that you might have. Okay, just realize that although the healthcare system is huge, there are all these companies and all these structures and governmental agencies and things like that. It's tempting to feel like you're a really small cog in that huge thing, and it's tempting to think that you might get lost or your needs might get lost. But again, this whole system is made up of people. Every person in the healthcare system has personal qualities and traits that determine how the system runs and ultimately what's the care that you get. But they're just people, like we all are just people. You have needs as a person, your provider has needs as a person, you have a relationship with whatever provider that you have. There is a human connection between you and your provider, whether it's a physician, a dentist, a nurse, chiropractor, whoever's providing healthcare services for you. Are they resisting that human connection, or do you feel it? And that's what we need to kind of look at, because everybody in the healthcare system is an individual. They've learned their discipline, whatever that discipline may be, but have they learned life's lessons to go along with that so that they can actually apply that discipline in a way that serves you well? What are the traits and qualities of everybody in the system, and how are those qualities manifest in the provision of care? How do those qualities impact your ability to get care? Impact it in a good way or impact it in a bad way? So when I'm talking about personal qualities and traits and characteristics, I am not an authority on any of that. I don't hesitate for a moment to let you know. I'm just learning myself, and I hope everybody is. But I'm not an authority. I'm curious. I'm not an authority on curiosity, but I'm certainly curious about personal qualities of people, and I'm trying to learn about this. I'm not certainly a model of anything other than a pretty normal mix of good and bad qualities. But I do know in my heart of hearts that what I believe to be true. There's just so much that you see when you look around, and that influences what I believe, and I'm just bringing that to you to share. Okay, but I have an inspiration. One person particularly has inspired me in all this. I did indicate in an earlier video that I was also inspired by the poor quality of dentistry I saw going on in the dental community. I was inspired to do something about it, but developing that more into the broader general healthcare field, my inspiration is the Reverend Dr. Lori A. Parker. And she is an ordained Zen priest, a Feldenkrais practitioner, a somatic experiencing practitioner, and the developer of the embodied mindfulness method. She's had a 20-year healing practice and brings all of that to bear on the clients that she works with. I have taken her body awareness courses over the last 7 years, and other courses as well. I've been a volunteer photographer and videographer for some of the materials that she's put out and is preparing to put out. She also inspired me to go through the somatic experiencing body-centered training, which I did in 2019, although I have not practiced as a somatic experiencing practitioner. I have observed her over the years model all the characteristics that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later that are the good and healthy characteristics and qualities and traits that we want to find in someone. And I have never observed her to model anything that was an undesirable characteristic, but we will be talking about those as well. If you want to find out more about Laurie Parker, Dr. Parker's website is integrationforall.com, and it's probably written about here on the screen right now, so you can take note of that. It's an interesting experience looking at what she's done and put together. Okay, this series would not exist in anything like as compelling a form as it does without her influence. I just want that to be known right off. Okay, as I was saying, there are healthy or good qualities or traits that people can demonstrate, and there are unhealthy qualities and traits. I'm going to just talk about 4. I'll name 4 of each now, and then in later videos I'll be breaking it down and discussing them in relationship to each other and in the relationship to the kind of care that you might get in more detail. So healthy or good characteristics or traits: honesty, empathy, humility, and the willingness to learn. Okay, unhealthy or poor qualities, characteristics, or traits are dishonesty, indifference, arrogance, and resistance to learning. So these are discussed at much more length in videos 10, 11, and 12, so be looking out for those when they get posted. But are you curious? Are you curious about what I'm talking about and how that might impact your ability to get good health care? Are you curious in general? What are your qualities? Do you know what your qualities are? Have you been able to observe yourself from outside and see yourself as a person? Okay, the more you understand your own qualities, again, the more you'll be able to help yourself get good health care. And I'll talk in later videos about how you might do that. But you also might recognize qualities, good or bad qualities, in the people that are providing health care for you. And you might be able to do something about that too. Okay, so the healthcare system, as I said, is comprised of many, many people, and you are a person just like the rest of them. But the qualities that they evidence can work for or against your needs, and we need to understand how that works. Okay, and I'll give you an example. So this was a friend of mine told me a few days ago about a family that she knows whose son, who was somewhere around 20, was basically dying. Western medicine, his doctors in this country were telling him that, well, he's 84 pounds, he's lost all this weight, he wasn't able to sustain any weight. And they pretty much thought he was dying, but they wanted to do a surgery and remove part of his intestines. Why? Okay, what drives that desire on their part? What are they thinking? Well, the parents thought they weren't thinking very much. So the parents said, okay, we've got some friends in another country that are part of a healthcare system, or that know people that are part of a healthcare system that's a little bit more flexible, a little bit more aware of different approaches that one might take to health. And so they had they connected the son to some providers in another country, and they worked with him quite intensely for quite some period of time more on the basis of diet and his mode of living, his approach to life. And within a few months period of time, he was now weighing 110 pounds and seemingly quite healthy. Now, that's an opportunity for the Western doctors who treated him and wanted to do surgery. That would certainly be an opportunity for them to learn if they have a willingness to do that. But it would certainly take a fair amount of humility, wouldn't it? Okay, so anyway, that's just sort of introducing where I'll be going a little bit later with an example. Here's another example in a sense. I've mentioned this before. This is that little wooden puzzle that I've talked about before. And remember what it looks like? It's got all these little pieces. And so this piece right here, I can slide it out. And if I slide it out, other pieces can fall out. And before you know it, it's all in a heap on the floor, and I have no idea how to get it back together again. So, I'm afraid to take it apart. I think when I was young, I took it apart, but now that I'm older, it's 30 years later, I've had this forever. And I hesitate to take it apart. Probably after I finish making these videos, I'll just bite the bullet and take it apart. Anyway, I've thought of this as a model for people, where each one of these pieces that fit together so nicely, each one of these pieces is an experience. And each experience could be a good experience or it could be a bad experience, but whatever it is that we have experienced is part of what makes us who we are. So I actually sat down and wrote out a list of 50 things that happened to me, either good things or bad things, or probably half of them at least were things that I did, acts that I did that I was ashamed of. Okay, so that's kind of an important list if you actually use it and go through it and look at it and pay some attention to it. Because again, that's taking your puzzle apart. That's taking the puzzle that is your life apart and looking at the pieces pretty intensely. And that might bring a different awareness to how you have been leading your life. If a physician or a healthcare provider were to do this exercise for themselves and realize things that they've done, see things in the past that they might have done and that they're ashamed of, they might learn to be better healthcare providers. That would be nice. But why don't they? Why would one be afraid of doing it? I'm afraid to take it apart because I might get it back together. Maybe they're getting afraid to take it apart because if they see too much of themselves, it'll be hard to get back together and find who they're used to, find their habitual self. So why would they be afraid to take it apart in a little more detail? Maybe it's an ego-driven avoidance of really taking a look at shameful things that they've done in the past, shameful acts in the past, personal or professional. Maybe they have a fear of deviating from the standard of care that they've been working with in their practice for many years. Maybe they're afraid, maybe it's just basically a resistance to learning. Maybe they're afraid to step out of the familiar box that they've been working in and try something a little bit different. It may be because they're afraid of liability. If they deviate from a particular standard of care and something doesn't go quite right, maybe they're afraid they'll get sued. Okay, so we'll talk, and we've talked a little bit about the legal system and the fear of liability in the past video, and that's kind of part of that too. But basically, if a provider does take their puzzle apart and look at what they have experienced in the past and how it formed them, and then maybe put things back together in a little bit different way, maybe they'll be able to offer you a better quality of care. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, so that's one of our goals. So if I'm talking to you as a patient, I'd like you to be aware of more of what the personal qualities are that determine your care, personal qualities in all the people that are involved in the healthcare system. And as a provider within the wellness community, I would like it if you were more aware of your attributes, your characteristics, your personal qualities, the way you tend to work, maybe what you're afraid of, whether you're doing things in an ego-driven way or not. And again, that awareness on your part as a provider is certainly going to bring a better healthcare to the people that are being served. I'll just share one thing with you personally about a particular piece of my puzzle, something that I'm not pleased about at all. In fact, I'm quite ashamed of it, but it's something that when I think about it, hopefully it'll help me to not do the same thing in the future. I was in La Jolla. La Jolla is a small town in Southern California. I was visiting a friend, and it's a buddy of mine, and we were just going to hang around and enjoy this little seaside town and have some fun. So in my mind, in my head, I was sort of planning out what we could do to have a good time. So we're walking through town, and there's a woman on the sidewalk, and she's handing out flyers, and clearly on the flyer there's a picture, and it's not a picture of a dog. It's not a picture of a cat. It's a picture of a child. And the woman was saying that she had lost her child, and this, didn't know where she was for whatever reason, and she wanted some help. She sought our help to try to find the child, just keep our eyes open as we're walking around and see if we spot her. And she would very much appreciate that. And she had a very much of a pleading look in her eyes, as I recall. My friend responded in a very empathetic way. He said, "Really sorry to hear what's happening, and we will certainly do our best to keep an eye out, and hopefully things will work out better for you." And she got his care that he was caring for the situation, and she clearly appreciated it. I, on the other hand, was more in my head about what I wanted to do and couldn't quite shift down and, look at the reality that was happening right in front of me. So I just sort of dismissed the situation by saying, "No, we're from out of town." Or I'm from out of town. And so, that's something that I'm very ashamed of. And I recall that situation occasionally just to help me, like I said, avoid things like that before. Be a little bit more alert to people. You never know when you're going to come across somebody that's in need, and take the time. And, get out of your head and, feel a little bit more as to what they might be going through. Okay, so anyway, we've got a puzzle that we can work with, and we have a consideration of personal qualities that we need to pay very careful attention to, because again, our relationship to the healthcare system is our relationship directly to the providers that we have, and having a true relationship and having a human connection, depends on each person being, aware of their own makeup, their own tendencies, their own qualities. So we'll talk more about that so that we'll be more alert to paying attention to that as we go forward. So again, the next video is video 9, and I'll be sort of giving a table, partially giving a table of contents as to what's going to be happening in the videos after that. I've already referred to 10, 11, and 12, which are particularly important when it comes to the qualities of people and how those impact your ability to get health care. And then we'll be looking further at the way the healthcare provider has structured their practice, the venue from which they offer healthcare to you, and how that impacts your ability to get good healthcare. And then the last 3 videos will be talking specifically about what you can do to improve the quality of healthcare that you get. And just to jump ahead a little bit, one of the things you can do is speak up. And one of the things you can do is speak out. And so we'll definitely be covering those, because there's a lot of power that you can get. You don't have to feel small. You can feel very powerful. And we'll talk about how you might proceed to do that.